Hello, welcome back to AGB Art. In today's video, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and using colors that I'm not really comfortable with. However, it is fall. It's time to look at warm colors. In this video, I'm going to show you two different techniques for making tile coasters. The first technique is a dirty pour with a little bit of swiping, and I've used extra paint left over from another dirty pour. I'm showing you a bit of a teaser video to start with. This was the quick version. I layered colors in a cup and then just poured them directly on the tile. I bought these tiles at the hardware store for 15 cents each. They're about 4 inches square. And then I used rubbing alcohol and a paper towel to clean all of the oils from my fingerprints or any dirt off of them. And next I used a clear cup that I turned upside down onto a paper plate that made a pedestal for the tile. And like I said, these are leftover paints. And mostly it was red and gold and white. Yesterday I was making Christmas ornaments and trying to use more red. So there's very little left in the cup. If you're going to do this, I would recommend that you have enough paint. But I'm basically just drizzling it on the tile, and then I'll use my palette knife to spread it out to the edges. What I found with using the palette knife was when I went to spread it out on the edges, it unfortunately mixed and I lost a lot of the design. Here I've got another dirty cup that I'm trying to squeeze and pray that paint will come out of it. And that's about enough paint right there. So I've got my palette knife now and I'm just spreading it to get the paint to the edge of the tile. And any design that I had in the ribbons, that last cup had a lot of white in it and it created some really neat designs. It almost looked like an illuminated letter from a medieval manuscript. But now because I'm swiping it and spreading it, I'm losing some of that design. There's some gold metallic in there. I used some Craft Smart red right out of the tube. Some of the paints were 1 part paint, 2 parts Floetrol. Some of them were just water. And like I said, it was red and white and gold. I believe there was a fuchsia in there as well. I'm just trying to get them all covered there. Once I have the paint spread and covering the entire tile, I take the palette knife and I'm just trying to make a little design in the paint. I'll be dipping a popsicle stick into the dark red and applying more paint to the tile in just a minute. I'm just not a fan of using red in my paintings, so I rarely buy it. But I found this really gorgeous dark red from Arteza, and I'll show you the tube in just a minute. But it just really appeals to me, even though I don't really like red. It's a blue red, and I'm just dabbing some paint onto the tile. I like using the side of a popsicle stick just to make little swirls. And I'm hoping to get a little bit of white out of there, or maybe those pretty ribbons of the white and this bluish red. I really don't want the tile to look like salmon. I want it to have some depth and some highlights. Next, I'm going to take my finger and run it along the edges of the tile. It's where the tile is not sealed. And I see I don't have enough paint there. There's not enough paint running over the edges because, remember, I didn't have a lot of paint for the tile. But I'm just smoothing a little bit of color on the edges. These will take probably 2 to 3 weeks to dry. And then after that, I will seal them. I'm still working on my method of sealing. And then I will put a piece of cork on the bottom of them. So I like to have a little bit of color on the edge. If you have a lot of paint on your tile and the paint drips off, you want to remove those drips. Not only do they make unsightly bumps if they dry, but as they drip, they pull your design off of the tile. The last thing I'll do to this tile is to torch it with my culinary torch, just to make sure I get all of the air bubbles out. If an air bubble is left, ultimately it will pop and it will dry as a small crater. And my goal is for these tiles to be completely flat. Now I've picked up my straw to blow some of that darker red out, just so it's a little more obvious on the tile. Here is the finished tile, and unfortunately in that lower right corner you're seeing a lot of reflection from my overhead light, but you can kind of see the ribbons of color. It's really pretty, and I will set it aside to dry. Here is another technique that I did, and I'm going to show you in just a minute. Also with warm colors. These are the colors that I used. This is the red, Bordeaux red from Arteza. I got that on Amazon. And that was the red that was also in the tomatoey looking tile. To the right of that, you can see a small cup. That is a sample paint from Lowe's Hardware, and it's blush colored. I got this at Michael's. It's a metallic, super thick, but it's metallic rose gold. And those were the 3 colors on the second tile I'm going to show you how to do. Instead of doing a dirty pour for the second tile, I'm going to pour the paints separately. So first I'm starting with that blush pink, and I've mixed it with 1 part paint, 2 parts American Floetrol. I'm pouring a puddle on the tile, and then I'll tilt the tile to spread the paint. Once I have the tile covered, I take my culinary torch and torch the bubbles out. I'm going to lay the colors individually. And this first color that I'm using here is the blush paint. It is a paint sample from Lowe's that somebody returned, and I paid $1 for it. You can't really tell the color from the top of the lid, but it is a pink blush. That's what's on the base. Now I'm going to take some of the rose gold metallic and I'm just drizzling it on top of the pink blush. You can't see what I'm seeing, but it's a super metallic, it's a very feminine color. I really like it. And I'm showing you here in the cup, it's very thick. Usually I don't put Floetrol in my metallic paints, excuse me, just because it tends to mute the color, and so I usually just put a little bit of water. I'm blowing the paint. I want to make sure that it's covered all of the tile. I also find I get a lot of bubbles in metallic paint, so I'm constantly using my torch. And now I'm adding that Bordeaux red. I'm doing it in lines to start with. And I'm wiping the stick off each time I put it down so that I don't put any of the blush pink into the red cup. What I'm trying to do is create interest, not have it too symmetrical, but definitely have some of this red, which it really doesn't look red at all, does it? It looks like a very dark pink. Once I've got that dark red down, I take the straw and blow out the lines. I find that when I blow the color, I'm more likely to get cells. It's really just a way of spreading the color. And I find that the red is disappearing in this. Normally, a top color will disappear into a base if the base paint is too thick. But in this case, the red paint that I'm playing with now is also very thick. I believe it is the same consistency as my base, but it just sort of keeps disappearing into the pink, the blush pink. So I'm just adding a little bit of color and then blowing it. Once I'm pretty happy with all the colors I have on the tile, I take my finger and I dab my finger along the sides of the tile just to make sure that paint is covering them. Because I have more paint on this tile, I have drips, and so I'm also pulling the drips off with my finger. These tiles will sit for probably 3 weeks before they're varnished, and then I'll glue cork on the back. I'll move all of the tiles over to another shelf to dry, and I've come back to this bright red one again and see there are drips there, so I'm going to clean those off. I hope you enjoyed the video. You'll press the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.